Hello, 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 and hello. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of I'm Not Okay Why. I'm Coach Debb, and I have my amazing panel with me today, and we're coming to you with the topic on domestic violence. Yes, it's real, y'all. And this month, of course, is Domestic Violence Month, and we are going to take it to the head. You know, we are uncut and raw conversationalists. We make sure that we shake some branches. We uncover the things that we're not okay with in our community. We mean to offend if it means that you're going to be healed, if you're going to get some help. Let me just take care of a few things. You know, you're tuned in to www.reallyrealradio.com. And what you need to do right now, you still got time to reach out to your family and your friends and let them know that the favorite radio station is on right now, reallyrealradio.com. Let me just let you know, I have a podcast called Reveal and Heal. You can't heal if you won't reveal. You can tune in each and every Monday at 6 a.m. on Facebook Live for a new topic. And of course, you know, it's a podcast. So we are on all major podcast outlets, just to be clear. Amazon, Pandora, iHeartRadio, Spotify, uh, Apple, just to name a few. We also have a YouTube page where you can put in Relationship Lounge and the archive of the episodes of Revealing Your Podcast. And also, I'm Not Okay Why broadcast that you have missed or would have missed is also on the YouTube. Y'all are really excited about moving forward and getting it started because this topic is very dear to me, very dear to me. It's something that I can relate to, domestic violence and sexual abuse. And I just pray that you have a listening ear, you know, to hear from this amazing panel that's going to come to you with some information I believe is going to help you. Welcome, 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 Minister Rhonda and Pastor Camille. We have others that are going to be coming in, but we're not going to delay. We're going to move forward because, see, you two ladies can speak on this. And I'm going to start with Camille. Camille, say hello to the people. And also, I want you to share um, any type of testimony in just a few words, how this topic is dear to you.
Well, hello, Coach Deb. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Hello, world. And I am so elated to be here today. This topic is so near and dear to me from an angle. I haven't been physically abused, but verbally abused. I rather you, I prefer you to actually hit me versus if you had to choose the two, I'd rather be hit because at least the hit will heal faster than me having to go deal with my psychic because you spoken words over me or to me that actually belittle or start messing with your mind, and you have to replay and hear those words over and over again, so they really go hand in hand. So I'm hoping that we will say something that will spark a reassurance or cause a person to rise up and get out. And I would say get out, but not just making any hasty moves, but have a safe plan, a way of escape plan. There is, and you will find out that there are some things that are actually able to help assist you as well as others. So, yes, this domestic violence month, this is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And so we just want to bring it to the forefront because it's in every household. It's in not every household, but a majority of the households.
Well, some form of abuse is in every household. I think
Yes.
it's the unknowing people, the lack of not knowing that that is abuse that has become a normality. It is abuse, and we're going to talk about it. We're going to get into it. But first of all, let me bring my sister in, Minister Rhonda. I want you to take this time to say hello to the people and also give them just a snippet of your background regarding, you know, domestic violence, you know.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Coach Deb, and great to be here. I am an overcomer of domestic violence, sexual assault, and child abuse. I have experienced um, physical domestic violence as well as emotional and financial abuse. So I, you know, luckily, God's way, I did not get in a situation where I had to flee in the middle of the night. But I understand why you would need to and how to do it. I've worked in an emergency shelter back in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. That's where I started out at. Worked in the emergency shelter, help, receiving women doing intake as they, called in on the crisis line and came into the shelter. And then I worked for an organization called Brothers Against Domestic Violence, where we escorted women to court um, so that they can file their TPO. And from there, I went out and started Rose of Sharon, which is a nonprofit in Atlanta, Georgia, where we currently provide supportive services to women that are transitioning from an abusive relationship into independence. And so, we do various things with helping women um, become, self-sufficient survivors. So I am, not one that just speak about it, but I've experienced it as well.
I'm so glad that you're here. You're part of the 12 apostles, and I'm glad that you're here to be a voice to the silent. Today, we're going to really get into it. An opportunity will be given to you for you to share how the people can, get in touch with you, at the end of the show. And I want to welcome Pastor Larry. We're so glad to have you. We're going to have a male's perspective regarding domestic violence. And let me tell you about this brother, uncut and raw, every day, all day. He's going to speak the truth. And those of you out there, a lot of you have been in contact with me. He has become a favorite of you all because you appreciate his transparency and his rawness. Well, guess what? He's just as transparent about this very topic. He is definitely pro, when it comes to, supporting women and children and men against violence. Pastor Larry, please say hello to the people and share just some background regarding this topic, sir, before we move forward.
All right. Good evening, everyone. As she say, I grew up in a domestic violence home from the time that I can remember to my father passing. Things, as a child, I was literally scared to go to sleep because I didn't know what my father was going to do. Being that he was a Vietnam vet, and back then we called it shell shock, but today we call it PTSD. And my mother became a punching bag when he got frustrated. So we saw that all the time. And I guess as we go further, I could share a little more, but it was very devastating. And a lot of times in the domestic violence relationship, the majority of the time the children are left out because mother and father is trying to cope in a dysfunctional lifestyle, and a lot of times the children are forgotten about, and so because of that, the child or the children become just like their partner, just like their parents, because they go by what they see and what they learn. So then you get a repeat or a generational thing that continues on and on and on until somebody decides that they're going to stop. But I will comment further as we go forward.
Okay, thank you so much. And Pastor Larry has brought up some real good points. Because a child that witnessed domestic violence, they pretty much grow up, doing what they see, because we know about that learned behavior factor. I want to move forward. And while we're talking about the children, I'm going to start with you, Camille. What do you believe, sis, is what are the factors um, regarding? Well, let me just ask, what about children's responses to domestic violence? Can you attest, to that question, because you volunteer and you work on the front line helping these families. Can you share with us? Because see, what we're wanting to do is raise awareness in our community, and we're hoping to speak into the lives of many that are still bound by the abuse, and they're afraid to leave, don't know what to do. They need to understand they're not the only one. Let's speak to those people today, you know, and by all means, please let's share, the effects that it has on a child.
Well, the volunteer work that I actually do, Coach Deb, is geared towards 18 and up, the younger young adults. And so we do have an area where it is specifically geared towards the children, and that's their main focus. But just knowing, from the experience that I had, I'll just share this one, how a young lady was being raised. I came in contact with a young lady, and her goal was to get her sister out. And I was like, get her sister out of what? And she said that my mother is actually had trained her to be a prostitute. And now she was training her younger sister, who was 14 at the time. So it just goes back to how we're continuing the cycle on what we see and those behaviors. If a child is being abused verbally, um, from profanity, being cussed out, or anger is being taken out on that child, and that's what they see how an adult respond or handle a situation. When as that child is growing up, they're going to begin to have those outbursts, those same type of outbursts as they're developing. And so they just think that's the way you handle a situation, in which it is not. It is not.
Okay, I'm gonna stick with you for a minute, because you told me that you deal with 18 and over, and it's relatable to the question that I initially asked you about a child, because the research suggests that in the long term, when children have been exposed to domestic violence, especially those children who are not who of course haven't received any type of therapeutic intervention or counseling, they deal with the increased risk of depression and anxiety, substance abuse, self-destructive or suicidal behaviors, impulsive acts, including risky sex and unintended pregnancies, chronic health problems, low self-esteem, criminal and violent behavior, including domestic violence, and also victimization by an intimate partner. Now, is that something that you have witnessed with
First,
these young adults? Because
yes,
this is for them that have witnessed it now.
yes.
So now let's speak to these young adults that you say y'all are dealing with. Do you recognize these behaviors?
Recognize those behaviors firsthand, because one is in our community, and I am a master cosmetologist, so I have 30 years experience. And from the type of child that sits in my chair, from working in the inner city to working in the suburbs. And so, based on, it doesn't matter whether that person is in the inner city or in the suburbs, is based on how was that person raised. And we can truly identify. I've had the clients that come, and young girls that are just, unruly. And now they're paying for it because they're addicted to drugs. Um, they don't want to comply. They didn't want to comply as a child, and they didn't have to comply as a child because, one, they have an issue with either that father or that parent. And so now that behavior is being demonstrated through illicit sex, drugs, alcohol. Um, what, like I share with you today, that that article where a person can actually rape someone on a public transit and no one say anything. Where is our society going to? Where has our society gone? And so, yes, we have all these acts being demonstrated. And as an adult, that child that you can't say anything to, or they know everything. Our children today know everything.
Rhonda, I want to speak to you about a younger age, and I want you to um, factually, you can state some things. We don't have Margaret on with us yet
Mhm.
to speak to the psychological and the mental health uh, area, but we can speak as people that are experienced in this area because I'm by grace I'm here, beat
Mhm.
left for dead, and I'm here as a witness. You know, I made it. Many didn't,
Mhm.
but I'm one of the ones who did. I also know have researched that ages 6 to 11 they deal
Mhm.
with nightmares, sleep disruption, aggression, and difficulty with peer relations in school, difficulty with concentration and task completion in school, withdrawal and emotional rumbling, and also numbing. You know, they don't feel. School avoidance or truancy, stomach aches, headaches, or other physical uh, complaints. Are these things that you can attest to or have witnessed, you know, on your journey with helping um, other, you know, uh, victims?
Yeah, some of the other things too is, avoidance and withdrawal. It's first of all a learned behavior, and it starts to confuse the development of who you believe you are or who you believe you're supposed to be. So child witnesses of domestic violence often either grow up becoming an abuser or becoming a victim. And then there are many of them that do become an advocate as well. So thank God for those that were able to overcome at an early age. Um, but the behavior patterns, and one thing that we should also be aware of is suicidal thoughts. Um, I attempted suicide my first time. I was 13, and you would think, well, how do you feel like that at that age? But I was molested by my father. I was physically abused by my mother, and then I started becoming very promiscuous. And so, a lot of these things was brewing way before 13 had even gotten there. By the time I got to 13, that was the manifestation, the outburst, the cry for help without knowing how to articulate it. Oftentimes children between 6 and 11 are ignored.
Ain't
People
that
don't
the
think
truth?
that there's an effect on them because
Hmm.
they're still trying to formulate their thoughts. But that thing goes deep, becoming, hyper arousal. They become, jumpy and nervous, and you may see kids biting their nails and things like that, or urinating in the bed. um, at that age between 6 and 11, you definitely should stop. You should be able to go to the bathroom. But these are ways that the anxiety and depression is starting to set in that oftentimes does not get looked at. And I will admit that as an organization ourselves, we should have a little bit more in place, knowing that I was a child survivor of these things as well. But just trying to get the mothers under um, good help is usually where our focus is. If we figure if we can get the mothers some help, then we'll get the children. But I think simultaneously, we need to do better at paying attention to the kids and how this affected them, living from car to car or house to house, sofa to sofa. And it's a big effect on them.
Noted, sis. Man, oh my God, how real you are talking. And you know what is so raw about this conversation is that children at that age and younger are made to be responsible for their
Mm-hmm.
parents.
Mm-hmm.
They naturally take on the responsibility and carry the burden of the abused, especially if they have a substance problem, substance abuse, problem, or, they just given up. That child just takes control and becomes so grown to make sure that mommy is okay, or daddy is okay. I believe that we ignore a lot of the signs. We
Mm-hmm.
look at the children, oh, they so grown, they got an old soul, they know so much, but we really
Mm-hmm.
need to be aware. You know what I'm saying? We need to be aware. It's important that we educate ourselves as a community so we can pay attention to signs that are not, it don't mean that they so highly intelligent.
Mm-hmm.
They could really be in a situation where they need special attention, where we need to look into the matter. Larry, I want to bring you in right now, and I want to talk about the ages birth to 5. You are a fireman, an EMT, a captain of the fire department. You've seen a lot, sir. You've seen a lot, and I know that you go into certain communities where you see the children are being unkept, or you've had to go in and rescue children. And of course, you have to be trained. You have to continually train, dealing with humanity, dealing with people for different reasons. We want to talk about the research I have found out for birth to 5 years, things that we should pay attention to: sleep or eating disruptions for the birth to 5-year-old, withdrawal or lack of responsiveness, intense and pronounced separation anxiety, crying uncontrollably, developmental regression, loss of acquired skills such as toilet training, a reversion to earlier behaviors such as asking for a bottle again. Rhonda, you were talking about waiting on yourself. Also, intense anxiety, worries or new fears, increased aggression or impulse behavior, acting out witnessed events in play, such as having one doll hit another doll. Now, this here, y'all, think about intense anxiety, worries, or new fears. What in God's name is a baby to 5 years old dealing with that type of stuff? I think that's the nervousness that you were talking about, the jumpiness that that you were talking about, Rhonda. But I know some real smart small children, that really and truly, know how to cook for themselves, and all of that. You know what I'm saying? So, because they witnessed the advance of so much stuff, like a parent that's addicted to drugs, most time they take their kid wherever they go. I mean, children know stuff I don't know, and I'm 56 years old. So, Larry, I want you to speak on this, because you admitted as a part of your testimony that you also sold drugs at one time. So I know that
Mm-hmm.
you witnessed a lot of the stuff that I'm talking about, where you probably shook your head like, man, please, what is that child doing here? Or whatever the case may be. Let's speak on that, sir, because what we're doing is we're hoping that the people that are listening, that they're paying attention to the signs that we're sharing, so that they understand the damage that's being done to the children. And let me finish this, and then I'll let you come in. I know that ages 5 to 7, a child's character is being built. And from ages of 5 to 7, uh, they have determined their place, what they're going to do, or who they're going to be to the degree of humanity. Um, I would say that that learned behavior, it's imprinted. It's imprinted in their memory. And the thing about it is that the ideas that they have acquired of the ideas of everyone they've witnessed behavior from. So there's no original idea. What they have learned, what they have seen, could take them to their grave. It could be completely the idea of how they live. Speak, sir.
I can speak on mine, and then I can also speak on the training that I had from the fire department. But like I was old. I think I peed in the bed till I was probably about 10. Probably last time I was probably 11. It wasn't on occurrence all the time, but it was times that it happened, and a lot of it was due to the development of just the fear of getting out of bed and startling my father or having to walk by him or do whatever. But then if he came in the middle of the night, I got a whooping for that. So it was like either way it go out, something was gonna happen. But in early development, what I found out in my own personal life is that it's hard to go to school and study. Well, it's hard to go to school and try to learn anything when you didn't get any sleep that night. When you're in a police car at 2:00 in the morning, your mother's calling your aunt to see if it's okay if she stays over there. Well, the family don't like you because they want you to get out this abusive relationship, and they get tired and frustrated of you. So then they start mistreating, like several of my aunts mistreated us. And the frustration was the fact that my mother wouldn't leave. And at a young age, being in that age range that she was talking about, you feel like don't nobody love or don't nobody care. And then it just seemed like it's all the way around. So what ends up happening is you make up a coping mechanism. My coping mechanism was laughing and playing, but I was dying on the inside. Some people are bullying. It depends on the person, how they deal with it. I dealt with it like my mother dealt with it. Regardless of what was going on, my mother kept a smile on her face and kept God in her heart. A lot of times I didn't understand the reason why she did the things that she did. I mean, I could literally say this, and Deborah, you know I love my mother to a T.
Absolutely.
But I really didn't like my mother growing up. I kind of hated her due to the fact I said to myself, why you won't get us out of the situation? All you have to do is leave. You know, you ought to get tired of having a broken arm, black eye, lying in church singing. You know, I was angry and I was upset until she had spoke to me about it. And if we get on there, we'll talk about that later about what she said. But the effects of the child growth, self-esteem. My self-esteem was gone. I mean, I'm already of a dark-skinned nature. Then I'm going to school being talked about. My daddy talking about me. So it's like for a child, you get beat up everywhere you go. So then you start acting out. So now the teachers don't want to deal with you. And all you want to do, all you're doing, Rhonda said it best, you're crying out, but don't nobody understand what you're crying out about. You know, and I deal with young people all the time also. And you can pretty much tell the kids that are in abusive, whose family is domestic, because they tend to be clingy, especially when you show them some attention and love. Especially, and we always think it's the young lady, but it's man, I get some young males that come to me and they tell me some stuff. I just fall to the ground and I just can't believe it. But they are dying. I mean, these young men are hurting. So when they're out in the streets, they're more aggressive because they're going to prove to their father that I'm a man. Because for me, I felt like a female the way my father treated me. Because he didn't make me feel like a man. He made me feel like I was my sister and my mother. And but as a child growing up, there has to be some stability. If you don't have no one to reassure you on some things, I was scared to ask my father for help for school. So I don't know. I can go on and on about that. It's just so detrimental. I mean, you can't sleep. You have nightmares. You have anxiety. What are some of the things? You have kid issues. I was violent at that age. Like it was nothing for me to just act out in violence because that's all I saw. And kids perpetrate what they see and what they learn. So I didn't know how to deal with my anger. My anger, the first thing I did was grab something, cuss you out a bit, what have you, because that's what I saw. And not knowing that it was wrong. And that's another thing we as adults got to understand. if I'm cussing you out, calling you a mother F, calling you a bitch, and doing all this, that becomes a part of your life. So it don't affect you as it would a normal child because that's your normality. So you wonder why this child is acting out is because that's all they know until you show them something different. And my mother was a praying woman, so church helped me out a great deal. And it was a battle, but I would say in my closing that is a critical age for development. And if you have that crosses over into your school age, and then it crosses over into your teens. And once you get into your teens, which what I did before my father died, I was 16. I mean, as a teenager, I was ridiculous.
Hey, Larry, I have a question. When you said
Yes.
your dad made you feel like your sister or like a girl, what did you mean by that?
There was no respect. I mean, as a okay, so for instance, like with my sons, I have them thinking man when they make a decision. So for instance, with my youngest son, who's now 25, when he was young, I would give him money and say, "This is what you have to do. You have to balance. You have to do this." My father treated me like, I mean, there was nothing manly about it. He would call me out my name like he did my mother and my sister. He would degrade me. He'd call me a bitch like nothing, And I'm sitting here going like, man, are you serious? I'm your son, your oldest son. And it was just how he did things. It was some stuff, like I said, the kind of person I wouldn't dare say at the present moment. But that's what he did. It was, yeah.
No,
It's crazy.
it's cool, and I know you're trying to, kind of keep some of the family stuff. I guess here's my question. It almost, and I didn't want to misinterpret what you were saying, but sometimes we will say to our boys, "Stop crying like a girl,"
or like a
as
sissy.
if, yeah, as if a man can't have a sensitive side. So when you said he treated you like your sister, it poked me for a second, because I'm like, okay, did he call you girl names, or because your sister is a human? The words that you said your dad said
like
to
a
your
girl.
mom,
right?
Yeah, but
So
I don't think I'm making it myself clear. Let
you
me try to get my thought out, please.
Okay, okay, go ahead.
I'm saying that your sister and your mother is a human being. So when he called them those names, and then he called you those names, it made you feel like a girl versus like a human being.
Like he was emasculating him.
Yeah.
Correct. So he would say things like, for instance, and I have to say it so you understand. Why you walking in like a bitch? Why you got your head down? Why you doing this? You might as well just put a dress on.
Oh, so
you
like
acting like old, you acting like old fag. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Why you acting like old fag? So you see what I'm saying? So those are the type of things that he would say. Kind of like, and then like I said, because there was no reassurance. Now, the thing that he did say was he taught me how to mistreat women. That he sat down and taught me. He had 3 cardinal rules: have sex with them as much as you can, never tell them you love them, and never buy them things. Those are his 3 cardinal rules. But and I have to say this because I don't want us to veer off. But in 2008, when we took a trip to where my father lived, I see why he did the things that he did. Because every female in his family abused him. He was literally raped by his aunt. And the aunt that he was raped by mistreated him when he was in Florida. And then he came back to Maryland. His mama mistreated. So you got a lineage of women that mistreated him. So what do? You start mistreating women. But I didn't understand that until then. I'm not giving him no excuse for what he done. But I can
you're making it
understand
plain,
why he
though.
did what he did. You see what I'm saying? So when you young and you've been molested by your aunt and she's mistreating you, you have a hatred. But see, I didn't understand that. I didn't understand it. Like I said, 2008, here it is. I'm 50 years old. I was 40 something then. And then I finally realized the reason why he did what he did, because he didn't have an outlet. You got to consider his family mistreated him. He get in the military, find 2 friends in Vietnam War. One of his friends died from him. Another get blown up away from him. Did he come home, be treated like he called a nigga and everything? He can't get the GI Bill. He can't get the. So he just had a conglomerate of things, plus PTSD. He was hit with Agent Orange, hardest in Okinawa. So to be honest with y'all, and y'all gonna say, what? I'm surprised the man didn't kill himself, because the things that he went through. And I guess him going through that, in his perception, is to mistreat me was being like making me a man. To don't come in here acting like no fag, nigga. Go on back out there and fight. Because my dad, if I lost a fight, my dad would literally send me back out there to get beat up some more, because he was gonna make sure that I was gonna win this fight. So he didn't know how to channel the things that he did. So like I tell you, and I ended with this, I had a praying mother, and I had people praying for me. So I'm totally opposite of that. I've never hit a woman. Well, I take that back. My first child mother, I had to push her in the face, but I've never struck a woman with my fist or with my hand in the face, because I seen the effects of it. My boys will tell you right now, they hear I love you. They hear it's okay to cry. They hear me how to treat women, because you don't have. So I did the totally opposite of what I've learned, because once again, I had a praying mother.
Whew. Let me tell you, I heard a lot, and I've seen what you're talking about. You treat people how you feel about yourself. It's like, if you don't love yourself, you don't know how to love others. And I didn't hear you making excuses for your dad. I didn't hear that. I heard that how desperately we need mental health in our community. I hear how we need to try to understand one another. There's no justification for abuse. There is none. But coming from abuse, you can see how the root of the abuse that you get from the abuser, there must be some abuse there. There must be. That's the only sense it seems to make. I'm going to bring you in right now, Camille, and going back to the help that you provide for the young adults, I find that there are other behaviors, and I just wonder if you've witnessed it as well. Self-destructive behavior such as cutting for the ages, the young ladies, running away, just reckless behavior, almost a narcissistic behavior. Is that something that you witnessed from the young adults experiencing domestic violence and sexual assault?
That's definitely a couple of the things that you called out, from cutting, running away, self-destruction, experimenting with all types of drugs, cocktails, alcohol. It's just so many components to domestic violence when you are raised in that environment, and you can't say it's based on income either.
No, you can't, sis.
You have to, I admonish, not admonish, but I give Larry all accolades, and I can definitely hear and understand and listening from firsthand his experience. And so thank you so much for sharing that and being so transparent. And you don't even realize, it takes you back to when you're being called names in your household and you're being put down by the very one that's supposed to be protecting you, or you feel like as an adult as a child that adult is supposed to be protecting you, but yet using their mouths, or we've used our mouths to belittle a person or individual because we hurt, and hurt people hurt others, and heal people help heal others. And so, yes, you mentioned mental disorders, all of that goes hand in hand, and it begins to work on your psyche as you begin to witness with your own eyes. I'm
Okay.
supposed to be in a healthy environment. You begin to really start contemplating, and like Rhonda said, suicide became a thought. Suicide became a thought for me. I
You better know it.
was an adult, and I had went through so much. I don't even know if I felt like that form of the ex-husband choosing to use substance abuse, that's some form of domestic violence, because you have responsibility. You've taken a vow to take on your family, your children, and then you begin to use substance to that's a form of abuse.
That's
Because
right.
now you're neglecting, and who knows what's going to follow when that person has the alcohol in them or the substance in them, what's going to take place.
Rhonda, what do you believe is the proper way to assess domestic violence when it comes to dealing with the youth? I have not yet gotten to the adults as of yet. Why? Because you don't just, as an adult, experience abuse.
Mhm.
There is something, in your youth at some point that somehow made you vulnerable to where you missed the signs that
Mhm.
that actually were there, and you still continue to involve yourself. You gave a blind eye to what you seen. I will tell anybody that's in domestic violence, it did not come by surprise.
Mhm.
There's always signs
Mhm.
that we ignore. So let's talk about the youth, the young, because see, teenagers, the rate is high.
Mhm.
Teenagers are experiencing domestic violence. And it's horrible. So let's talk about the signs of assessing that situation so it can be nipped it, it can just be nipped in the bud.
Absolutely. Thank you for that question. First, I want to also say to any listeners, we're probably a little late with saying this, but if you are triggered in any way through this conversation, maybe getting in contact with a counselor. We don't want you to regress or to feel the need to cover up if you're in a domestic violence relationship or you see it at home. I know that sometimes these conversations can trigger someone who has previously experienced abuse and have not had help. But please know that there is help out there available, even with the National Domestic Violence Hotline. I don't have the number handy right now, but I will get that before we end the call. But just want to make sure that we are acknowledging those that could be triggered by the conversation. This is for healing. This is not to bring shame or to cause
Absolutely.
any additional regression. But for children, so 1 out of 4 women will experience domestic violence in their lifetime, 1 out of 3 teens, and 1 out of 7 men will experience domestic violence. So this affects all of us. Now, as it relates to the youth, um, um, it's not just females, but I can only speak to the female population because they have sent out stronger signals that they're in an abusive relationship, that hasn't, it couldn't even, it could be starting, hasn't even gotten to the physical yet, but you notice your young person always needing to check in with their boyfriend or their male friend. They're always having to share their whereabouts. They can't, they can't sit, they can't not answer a call or a text message within a certain amount of time frame. And if they don't, you can watch the countenance of your young girl start to retreat as she's being chastised over the phone. Isolation is a big one where the boyfriend no longer wants her to hang out with her friends, but she's always going over his house, or he's always coming over her house, or they're going to the mall, and not with other friends, but it's always them. So your young person being isolated from the family and friends, maybe there's change in her personality, her or his, because it does happen with boys too. So, changing the personality from being bubbly to more recluse and more, quiet, noticing bruising, noticing grades starting to drop. These are some signs that something could be going on. And even if it's not, it's a good opportunity to talk with your child and find out, are they in a healthy relationship with their peers at school? I did talk about suicidal thoughts. We gotta keep the doors of the children open. We don't want to have the doors closed too long. And I'm sorry, go in that room and snoop
Come on now.
sometimes.
Come on now.
You may have to go and look in that journal, look at their social media, see what kind of conversations are going on. But you got to get in their business. We used to say a long time ago, domestic violence is your business. A lot of times our community want to turn a blinded eye, and we don't want to talk about it because it hasn't showed up at our doorstep. But I just gave you statistics on how it affects every one of us. If it's not you, it's someone you know. And so and one thing that is very very easy to identify is more drug and alcohol abuse with your child too. This could be a way that they're able to cope with what they're dealing with, and making a safe place for them to talk. And those of us that's gone through it and our children have seen it, I think that you need to talk to your children if you've already overcome it, because chances are the behavior could be repeated.
I appreciate that, Rhonda. That goes hand in hand with my next question for Larry. Larry, how important is it that we are transparent, with our children, no matter their age, about some areas in our lives that we've experienced, such as this level, so that they understand certain behaviors or thoughts that they are challenged with, how important is it that we're transparent and we share, some embarrassing moments, of our deliverance, so that we can help them and again nip that in the bud, so that they don't act out on what they feel or what they think. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I always tell my kids, everything that I tell you will be age appropriate. What I start off by telling them between the ages of 5 and 6 will be different than I did when they're 13 and 14. I believe it's that for me, I put it like this: for me, if you're a child that's in it, there really is no age to be transparent. You just want to be out of it. You can be transparent to be all day long, what's going on, but I just wanted to be out of it. But now, I will say this: my mother, when I got older, after my father died, she was transparent. And she literally broke down and cried, because I had told her, I think when I finally started dealing with my mother with this, I think I probably was out of college. and we had a talk, and we were just talking. And I said, well, Mama, why you just didn't leave? Why you just didn't do this, do this, do this, do this? She said, well, Larry, I felt all alone. She said, my family didn't want to deal with me. The church didn't want to deal with me. People around me didn't want. She said, I just had you all. She said, I didn't have no finances, even though I worked, she said, I didn't have enough to take care of y'all. And so she kind of was transparent and open. And, and I told her, I said, well, I understand because, I don't understand why you stayed, but I understand. But then again, too, I'll be honest with y'all, back then, and I hate to bring this up, but I have to, the church would told my mama, you just stay there, honey, and pray and watch God work. Well, it didn't work out that way. So we ended up I ended up going through 16 years of it before my father passed. But and like I said, we have to be open with our kids about what's going on, and we have to be open. Dr. Rhonda said it best. We can't shut the door on our kids. We have to allow them to talk and be transparent.
That's
I think
right.
transparency has to go both ways, because you have to listen to the child and understand the child, as well as the child have to listen to you and try to get an understanding. Because we have, as adults, we got to understand these are kids, so they don't understand like we understand. Even at 14, when I was going through, I still didn't have an understanding. All I was like, well, just get out of it. But I didn't understand what all came in for her to get out of it. And I just think we have to talk one to another, because I'll be honest with you, as a father, I wasn't the best father. And as I formed my relationship with my kids, we started to be open about a lot of things. There was a lot of misunderstanding because I thought one way, they thought a way, and because a lot of times when you're in a situation, you don't even be thinking. Sometimes you ask yourself, how did I get here? Why did I keep? Why was I keep going? I mean, why did I keep going through this? So we have to be transparent and tell how we feel. But I will say this, and someone may disagree. Regardless of how transparent we are, we have to get out of the situation. But we have to communicate. Everybody has to talk to each other. If you are being abused, and you see these things that we have spoke about, the different triggers, the different wetting in the beds and all that, then you would have a full understanding of what you need to talk to the child about, and let them express themselves, and in the way that they understand. You can't expect a 8-year-old and you 30-something years old, y'all to be on the same wavelength. So you have to understand that what they're telling you is how they understand it. So I think once we do that, I think I won't say it'll ease it, but I think it'll help, because if I was able to talk to my mother about some stuff, because my mother literally worked all the time to stay away from being home. So if I had time to talk to her and be open, or just to anybody, that would have helped me out a whole lot.
Camille, let's talk. You want to say something, Camille?
Yes, I do. I want to. I wanted to, while Larry was talking, I wanted to ask this question. Just hypothetically, you put the age out there as 8 years old, and do you feel like, or any one of you all, do you feel like, if hypothetically, if it was the age of 8, that you become aware of what's going on and nothing is being done, and you don't have the words to articulate how you're actually feeling? Do you feel like that's the age that that person begins to get stuck in his mind or her mind, and she can't move past that, or he can't move past that because he can't really articulate his emotions or her emotions at that time based on the abuse that's going on in the family or they're witnessing?
Now, as for me, at the age of 8, I realized what my daddy was doing was wrong, but I didn't realize the depth of pain that it caused my mother and I. And when I say that, it's if you can think back, if we all could just think back to a situation that we did and didn't understand the dangers of it until we got older. And I revert back to that. And, like I said, I understood that it was wrong. And I understood, being in a police car at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning going over to my aunt's house and not getting any sleep. That I understood, but I didn't have a full understanding of what was going on because I wasn't mentally capable at the time of distinguishing the things that my true feeling. All I know
Right.
is I'm going with mama. You know,
Right.
I'm going with mama. Daddy hit mama, so we're going over auntie's house, or now we're going over uncle's house. That's all I could. That's all I could think. I mean, that was it.
Right.
But then as I got older, I go like, oh, so now I see. You know,
Right.
so that's just my experience.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at, Larry, where it calls you to think back, because I know for me, I had to think back to like age 5. That's why that happened. And then, just for those people that are out there and to speak to that person that may feel like they're stuck in a situation, what caused you to get stuck? That's when a Christian counseling or counselor would have to come. That's where it is okay to get therapy. It's such a cliche that we can't get the necessary help that we need psychologically, because our community, we get stuck in domestic violence. You get stuck. And the next thing you know, you're acting out just the very thing that we say that we would never, ever do. It ends up being the very thing that we do until we get the necessary help.
Correct. Let's talk about the different types of abuse. So it's more than, no abuse is bigger than the other one. You know what I'm saying? It's all abuse. So let's talk about sexual abuse. Let's take a few minutes on that. Verbal and emotional abuse, mental, psychological abuse, financial and economic abuse, and culture and identity abuse. I can relate it, to all of those except for the last one. Uh, when you're in a domestic violence relationship, you lose who you are, and you just don't matter. You just don't matter. You deal with all of these levels. So, Rhonda, can you share with the listening audience, because we're going to be closing out real soon. Share with the listening audience your take on verbal and emotional abuse.
Okay. So verbal abuse is, and to be honest, this is where it starts before it gets physical.
You better say it.
It very seldom do you get in a relationship and then a person just automatically hits you. So the goal of an abuser is power and control,
Exactly.
and the underlining thing that he or she uses is first to pull you down verbally, emotionally, definitely, like I had mentioned earlier, isolation is huge across all age groups. If the abuser can isolate you where you believe you only need them, you become reliant on them, you begin to go through this cycle of abuse, starting with verbal name calling, making you feel like you can't accomplish something. And I'm starting to break these down a little bit more, because a lot of times people will overlook and say, oh yeah, well, no, he hasn't called me a B, he hasn't called me a name, but he's telling you you can't do something, you're not good enough, or you need him or her to accomplish a goal that you want to accomplish. And this is slowly beginning to get you to rely on this person. And then they love bomb you, bring you in with all the flowers and love and everything, and then push you back and make you feel like you don't deserve that love that you just received. This is an emotional cycle of, controlling the victim before we get to any financial or physical abuse, making you feel like you deserve the argument or the the withholding that the person, because we're going to talk about financial abuse, you deserve for me not to supply you with some needs that you may have, that, if you're in a house together. And then, talking about you, calling you names, telling you, you're not worth it. You're not worthy, and really, really just lowering your self-esteem to a point that you start to believe it. After you hear it long enough, you start to believe it. And when you're isolated and all of the friendships and family relationships have been cut off, you don't feel that you have a hope, and you try to figure out, how can I be a better person than what this person is saying? So you try to appease them by doing things that pleases them versus pleasing yourself. And it all starts with the verbal and then the emotional, not caring about your crying, not being sensitive to pain that you may be feeling, or just completely insensitive to your humanity, as we do still rely on people. And so those are some of the ways that an abuser can use power and control in a verbal and emotional way.
Mercy, mercy, mercy. You mentioned some things that really took me back. And I promise you, I don't think too often about, those areas, but the emotional and verbal abuse, as I think about it, was the worst for me. Even though I got beat so bad most times, you couldn't recognize who I was. The words were like weapons. I recall, the word, it's like it was a cutting that was slowly draining my life. And when you lose yourself from that type of emotional death, I was, the names that were spoken over me, stupid and dumb and ugly, and none of those things were true. But you get beat down with words to the degree to where you start believing what is stated to you. And at that time in my life, I didn't understand that life and death was in the power of the tongue. And words will leave emotional scars, often longer than anything else. I thank God that I can talk about it and be okay with it. It's not going to affect me once this conversation is over, but it's a conversation that we have to have. You have to have this conversation. Camille, is that your experience? Because you said you went through verbal and emotional abuse. Can you relate to any of this I just shared, or Rhonda shared?
Yes, I can definitely relate. I was just, as you were speaking, I was just writing that I would say to that abuser, that person that doesn't think but just react, consider apologizing to the people that you have put your hands on or your mouth on. Consider it. I would ask them to please consider it and stop reacting and learn to respond, because it's causing generational damage.
Absolutely. That's it right there. Yes, it goes on and on and on. And to the abused, it's like that light leaves their eyes. It's like the light is dimmed from the pain of the verbal and emotional, mental, and psychological abuse. Larry,
Coach Debb,
yes,
can I say something real quick?
please.
And just to piggyback off of Camilla's comment to the abuser to ask for forgiveness, I want to say to the survivor,
Abuse. To the abused.
yes, forgive yourself
Forgive yourself.
for feeling like you allowed this to happen. It's not your fault. It's
Nope.
a perpetual cycle that that we get caught up in, whether we've seen it and witnessed it before. But the isolation was the first red flag for us to realize that we were going into a dangerous relationship. But you wouldn't have never known that had you not have known it. Had you known the signs, you would have done something differently. So forgive yourself as well.
Larry,
Rhonda, do you
okay.
think sometimes that person that's being abused, that's their form of, they feel that this is the only way I know how to receive love?
Absolutely, because Larry said earlier
Get on that,
that
honey.
yeah, Larry said earlier that what became their norm, not knowing that this was not normal because you're in it so long. This is your normal. And
Right.
there was a generation in the past that
Mhm.
taught us that this is how a man expressed love. And
Mm.
so women were taught to be abused. And
Naturally.
yeah, from generation to generation. But the buck stops here, honey.
Oh, yes.
That's a lie from the pit of hell. we
Amen.
we are conquerors. And
Yes.
so we're identifying the behavior and we're
Yes.
calling it out,
Yes.
and we're crying loud and sparing not.
Yes. Absolutely. Larry,
That was
was
good.
you're unmuted. Did you want to add to that?
Yes, ma'am. Real quick, and I promise I won't be long. When you sent me this subject, I went to National Coalition Against Domestic Violence website, and it's funny that you all would talk about psychological and verbal abuse. This statistic is from 2020, and I want y'all to hear this. And I would love, and I'll tell you the reason why, what my idea. So it says 53.8% of Black women, and listen to this, 56.1% of Black men have experienced psychological aggression by their intimate partner. Now, what I got from that is because women are not physically stronger than men, verbally, oh, they will cut a man clean up. That mouth battle would get you. Because see, I think, and I'm about to tell men a secret. Men are ego driven. A woman can destroy a man with her mouth. Uh, we might not act like it. We'll walk around with our chest wide, I mean, up, but down on the inside because somebody told us that we was nothing, that we wasn't gonna make it, that you ugly. I mean, all this stuff. But it was just ironic that psychologically and verbally that men leads in this with domestic violence. And I just thought that was interesting.
No,
Well,
it really is interesting. And you know what, Larry? I had a male who was an abuser say to me, teach women not to provoke. And I was like, huh? And so we talked about it. He was just saying, if I say, and I know this is not where you were going, but he was saying, if I say I need to leave, let me go. Women will, not all women, but some women will run up to the door, stand in his face, yell, point in his face, and say things to provoke him. Because in some sense, once again, if I get a reaction, that means he loves me. If I get him to, whether he's hitting, spitting, kicking, he is showing he loved me. It's a twisted, sick way of thinking that this means love. Love doesn't hurt on either side. And so, yes, women do cut men with their tongue, but baby, we have been cut a whole lot. We can walk down the street and be called a B instantly because we don't respond. So I'm not saying that it's one versus the other, but I'm just telling you we get it a whole lot, and don't even be in a relationship with anybody. Women are the last, Black women are the last on the food chain. We are the last respected. We are the last protected. And until I start seeing more men stand up and protect us and stop the behavior that I have been seeing over my 46 years of life, I'm going to stand up for my sisters, and I'm going to go with the majority. We are left out here with kids and beaten, abused on the streets with nothing. And yet bruh can just run to his brother's house and he's good. He ain't taking the kids with him. So I'm sorry. I just when
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
Hey, listen. I was
that
gonna
hurt
say,
the core a little bit.
I was gonna say
but it's
I was gonna say
okay,
that's another
sis. It's
show.
okay.
Yeah, that's another show. That's
I was
another
gonna say,
show.
that's another show.
Yeah,
Listen.
you went in, sis. You went in.
I understand. I understand what you're saying, but you said something that was key. Um, for me, psychologically, like you said, because when black women are strong, it don't be reported, just like men. Believe it or not, I've been in a domestic. My first child mother was very abusive to me. Matter of fact, I got a scar on my lip when she hit me in the mouth with some brass knuckles because she thought
Well,
I was
speak
talking
for the
to a
men,
girl.
bro. Speak for the men.
Huh? So men go through it, but we just don't report it. I was sexually harassed in the military. I was 30 years old, and I'm just now starting to get help for that. People, because we don't talk about it. You look at me, I'm 243 pounds muscle, and you would think, oh, that ain't how that is. But sexual harassment, just like domestic violence, it's not always physical. She kept me from doing things that I should have been doing. She kept me from advancing in the military due to sexual advances that I did not take. That's part of sexual harassment. But we never think that. The only thing we always think is about the physical part. But just like with domestic, I think if we start learning that there are more aspects and layers to it, more people report it. Because there's a lot of black men, especially now. Oh my God, you, I've seen. If you want to see domestic violence, go to a little league football game. Oh Lord, man, I see so many women slap guys. It's amazing. And that dude just walked off. I mean, she slapped him. He walked off. He said, "Look, I'm gonna walk off, so I won't kill you. I'm gonna walk off because I don't want to beat you." Because we know as black males, oh, it's different if we attack you all and the police come. It's a totally different thing. It might cost us our life. So a lot of times you're seeing men now, they just walking off. We like, okay, you know what? I take this for the team and I move on. But if you want to see that, go to a little league game. Watch what as we say in the hood, a baby mama, baby daddy. That woman, almost now the ones that I've seen, can't speak for everybody, but most of the time the woman is the aggressor now.
Okay,
Man,
guys,
I
we're gonna have to
appreciate
stop
you.
right here. We're
Oh
gonna have to
Lord.
stop right here because this is part one. We're gonna do part two. That's okay. We're gonna do part two. So just hold your thought because we're in this. It has gotten so meaty to where there's plenty to say. But I want to give you guys an opportunity before we close for the first half of the show to be able to talk about your organizations, how you people that are in need of help can get help. So in closing, I will go ahead and start with you, Rhonda, sharing with the people, how they can reach you if they need help.
Awesome. Thank you so much again for having me. Rose of Sharon, ATL. So ROSATL.org. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook at Rose of Sharon ATL. Our phone number is 678-322-8 and then the word new, NEW. I also want to share the National Domestic Violence hotline phone number. Thank you, Camilla, for sharing that. 800-799-7233. And also this coming week, we are doing our chat and chew. So please follow us for information on that and find out about that event. Thank you.
Well, you ain't done yet, darling. I
Oh, I'm
just
not
want
done.
you to speak to someone that,
Oh.
speak to someone that may be in trouble, and they need a way out. Please
Absolutely.
encourage him right now.
Yeah. So, as I mentioned before, it's not your fault. Domestic violence is not your fault. You have the information now. It's getting out is very important, getting out of that relationship. But just know that it takes some tenacity, it takes some courage, and it takes for you to have a calculated escape plan. So if you are out by the sound of my voice, you can call us at 678-322-8NEW. We'll, go over your specific situation, and together we'll come up with a plan to help you get out of that relationship. You don't want to uproot yourself quickly, because the last symptom of domestic violence is death. And
Amen.
at the time of an escape is when victims normally lose
There
their life, because
you
you are telling the abuser that you take back your control. And so we want to take it back, but we want to use wisdom.
will use
So
wisdom.
yeah. So please reach out to us. Our email address is info@rosatl.org. Again, the website is rosatl.org.
Thank you. Now, Camille, I want you to go ahead and speak to the people how they can reach out to you and encourage someone that is in need of help.
Well, right now, Coach Deb, I do not have my nonprofit up. I actually volunteer with an organization in my county, and so I don't want to mention it right now because you don't want to cross the lines with Christianity and politics.
I
So
understand you.
um, we will definitely embrace Rosa sharing. I have done some
Amen.
volunteering work with them. I'm very big on domestic violence. I want to say to that person, please do not announce that you're leaving. That's one of the things that end
Main
up.
thing.
We've witnessed a lot of people losing their lives because you make the announcement that you're leaving them. Um, So I just want to speak to that person, and I pray that you have the courage, reach deep down inside, evaluate yourself, evaluate the situation, reach out to info@roseatl.org. That's Rhonda Anita's organization, Rosa Sharing. And will help you get if you need a restraining order, they will help you get a TPO. I have actually witnessed I'm actually going to court tomorrow with someone to actually walk through that TPO. We just need you to have the courage deep down inside and understand that this walk is not a lonely walk when you reach out with the proper help. And the proper help is there. That person
Yeah,
that really wants to help you is there. But please not announce that I'm leaving, I'm getting my stuff, I'm getting my kids, and we're getting out of here. That is not the way. That is not the way.
that's an
That,
unwise way.
yes, calculated escape plan is necessary.
Absolutely. Larry, please encourage someone, sir, uh, that is in need of help right now.
I would say to don't be embarrassed because you're not the only one. There are many out there, but they just haven't told their story. And I say get out the situation because when you're in a situation like that, whether male or female, it's like dropping a pebble in the water. It's a ripple effect. It just doesn't deal with the immediate family. It actually rips out into the extended family. And then, as Rhonda would say, it causes isolation and make everyone isolate you, whether you want to be isolated or not. And then what you don't want to do is feel by yourself and lonely. I tell people when I preach, the best way for the enemy to get you is to be by yourself. And because he's more powerful when you're by yourself. when you're by yourself, because then he gets to think, he gets to talk to you in your thoughts. But there's as it's been stated, there's a lot of resources, and there are a lot of people that are waiting for you to just make a phone call. And sometimes it just, the courage of just getting on the phone and telling your people your business is almost, it's the hardest part. So I encourage you to do whatever you need to do. I tell people when we have altar calls, don't think about it, just come. And everything else will happen on its own. And I tell you, don't think about it, just call.
Thank you, Larry. I always like to leave, with some information, you know, to encourage you to, just to remind you that this show is in love. The things that we talk about that may offend you, rub you the wrong way, we're collectively working together as a community to heal. And the truth, it's nothing most times that make you feel good. So I want to leave you with, some information from Domestic Violence National Association. You see, anyone can be an abuser. They come from all groups, all cultures, all religions, all economic levels, and all backgrounds. They can be your neighbor, your pastor, your friend, your child's teacher, a relative, a coworker, anyone. It's important to note that the majority of abusers are only violent with their current or past intimate partners. Key. One study found 90% of abusers do not have criminal records, and abusers are generally law-abiding outside the home. They smile. They're gentle and kind. They don't show any signs that they would hurt a fly. So pay close attention to the signs. Watch as well as pray. There's signs: extreme jealousy, possessiveness, unpredictability, a bad temper, cruelty to animals, verbal abuse, extremely controlling behavior, just to name a few. Just to name a few. This is the first half of domestic violence and sexual assault. We will have part 2 on Thursday at 4 p.m. Part 2, domestic violence, sexual assault, and sex trafficking. I want to thank you so much for tuning in to I'm Not Okay Why. I want to thank the amazing panel, the best panel anyone could ever ask for. Transparent, uncut, and raw. We are here to heal and be a part of the healing process. Tune in each and every Tuesday and Thursday at 4 p.m. for a brand new topic, I'm Not Okay Why. I'm Coach Debb. Remember to love yourself, love everybody, and be an example. Have an amazing day. You deserve it.